and large, video game protagonists are meant to be the heroes fighting against the forces of evil. However, some of them, despite following a noble cause, or seemingly a noble cause, might employ some really questionable methods of accomplishing said cause. Sometimes the main character can be considered the hero, and their enemies can be genuinely evil people, but the way in which the protagonist goes about defeating the bad guys seems definitely more messed up than any evil deed their rivals mustered. I'm Jess from What Culture, and here are 10 video game heroes that act more evil than the villain.
Want to stay safe online and save big? Well, you can. Right now, you can get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. And all you've got to do is click the link in the description below or on this QR code that should be right down here in this video to get signed up with this great deal right now.
Number 10, Rico Rodriguez, Just Cause 3. The Just Cause series is a chaotic adrenaline rush of non-stop action, explosions, and stunts that puts pretty much the entire Fast and Furious franchise to shame, and those guys put a Pontiac in space, so that's really saying something. The utter insanity is in no small part the doing of the franchise's protagonist, Rico Rodriguez, who, despite acting as a guerrilla revolutionary against the world's dictators, is easily more dangerous than all of them combined. You might say that stunts like strapping civilians to rockets or driving planes into important government buildings are done by the player, but according to lore, all the unhinged and sadistic things you do in the game are exactly the kind of things Rico would do in order to, quote, liberate people from tyrants. In fact, he's completely unapologetic in his war against dictatorships, which is why he has hundreds of civilian casualties on his conscience wherever he travels. The only important thing to him is seeing his goal see the light of day, and no moral quandaries are gonna get in the way of that. The people he fights are obviously terrible despots, but seeing how many places Rico leaves in ruins, you have to wonder if their regimes could actually match Rico's casualty rates in each game. Number 9, Jason Brody, Far Cry 3. Vaas is the villainous face of Far Cry 3, whom many people consider one of the most threatening antagonists in gaming. And yet, as iconic as Vaas is, his kill count and degree of insanity are nothing compared to Far Cry 3's protagonist, Jason Brody. Although Jason starts off as a kidnapped tourist with no combat or survival skills whatsoever, over the course of the story, he begins to learn the island's way, and in true Far Cry fashion, that experience begins to warp him into someone far more sinister. Though Jason might be considered the hero given he's saving the islands from pirates, his journey to becoming the warrior of legend is filled with so much bloodshed and drug-induced hallucinations that by the end of it all, he becomes an even more psychotic killer than Vaas, with far more blood on his hands than Vaas could ever imagine. The ending of the game is the perfect summary of how the island has changed Jason into its worst monster. Jason is asked to perform a ritual to ascend to his rightful place, and if the player agrees to do it, Jason will kill his girlfriend Eliza to prove his worth. Don't do drugs, kids. Boy, oh boy. Number 8, Travis Touchdown, No More Heroes. As the title suggests, No More Heroes isn't exactly a game about good people. The whole series revolves around an assassins championship in which trained killers eliminate each other for the title of the world's best assassin. Yet somehow, the main protagonist, Travis Touchdown, still manages to be more deplorable than most of his rivals. Why? Because whereas other assassins might treat their wicked craft as a means of self-improvement or a personal duty, Travis kills people to get laid. Okay, look, he technically also derives self-serving pleasure from taking people's lives and likes to get paid for it, neither of which are better causes than what I said up top. But his main reason for becoming an assassin in the first place is mostly Sylvia's, the organizer of the assassins competition, proposition to have sex with him if he wins. None of the people he fights are innocent, but some of his enemies seem to be genuinely more noble, although the bar does seem to be in hell. They seem to see assassinations as a necessity and treating their enemies with generally more respect than Travis, who is plenty disrespectful. He commits all the awful things under his belt for nothing more than self-gratification and maybe getting laid. In other words, it's called No More Heroes. He's the perfect protagonist of his series. He ain't no hero, but, you know, maybe he'll get with Sylvia. Fingers crossed. We're rooting for you, Travis. Bummer. Wish I hadn't said that. Well, let's keep going. Number 7, Nathan Drake, Uncharted 2. Nathan Drake is often portrayed as a hero in the Uncharted games, being the lovable, wisecracking treasure hunter who simply seeks to follow in his legendary ancestors' footsteps. However, at the same time, it is undeniable that his quests for glory and wealth usually end with thousands of casualties at Nathan's hands. In every Uncharted game, Nathan's responsible for killing hundreds of people just to get his hands on said promised treasure, and this point is perhaps made no more clearer than in Uncharted 2, when Nathan accuses the game's villain Lazarevich of killing innocent people, and the Warlord responds by asking Nathan how many he's killed, trying to get to him, which, let's be honest, can easily rack up to hundreds of casualties, as we said. Of course, a lot of fans will point out that Nathan's killing spree is usually done in self-defense, and it's not typically him who fires first. Still, considering the sole reason why the fights break out is because of Nathan's selfish goal of treasure hunting, and the fact that Nathan even cracks jokes about the murders he's committed, it doesn't mean his actions are justifiable or innocent. If you heard about him on the news in real life, you'd probably assume Nathan is a mass murderer terrorist, but he is very charming. Number 6, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. We talked about Nathan Drake being more of a morally grey rogue than a hero, but of course, if we're gonna talk Nathan Drake, we need to talk about the other morally grey rogue than a hero, the other treasure hunter, that is Lara Croft. The titular Tomb Raider protagonist acts even more morally questionable than Nathan in her quest for relics, especially when compared to her recurring villain, Jacqueline Nadler. Whereas Lara raids ancient sites for fun, collecting treasures for her own collection, Nadler seeks to uncover artifacts in the hopes of bringing humanity into a new age of technological prosperity. Now, Nadler's goal isn't perfectly altruistic. She is more interested in controlling the new world after all, and that is relevant, as well as the fact that her methods of uplifting humanity are somewhat questionable. But compared to Lara, at least she's motivated by what she believes is the common good. Meanwhile, Lara's pretty fine with killing people, desecrating tombs, and breaking into places just for the fun of it, because I guess she has nothing better to do and she's bored in her big mansion. If she wasn't established as the hero, she could easily pass for a secondary villain who enters into the picture to cause wanton destruction, really just for her own amusement. But we love her, so she gets a pass. Number 5, Mario, Super Mario Brothers. Speaking of, we love them, so they get a pass, we gotta talk about the plumber. There are a lot of obvious jokes that can be made about Mario's ridiculous world of the Mushroom Kingdom. You got your stoner humor about Mario eating shrooms and the weird Stockholm Syndrome situation between Bowser and Peach, but the one Mario-themed gag you could argue has a speck of a really messed up truth to it is the one about Mario being an even bigger menace than his turtly arch nemesis. Let's face it, over the years, Mario has been responsible for countless on-screen deaths of Bowser's posse. Each time he steps on a Goomba or hurls a Koopa shell off a cliff, that's the life of one of the residents of Mushroom Kingdom gone forever. Alright, it's a little bit of an overdramatic statement, but then again, when you compare Mario's actions to the fact that Bowser has never killed anyone on screen in the official games, apart from Mario, of course, it does make the plumber's rampage hit a little different. Bowser might fashion himself to be a big tough villain, but Mario is actually the one with a proper kill count to his name, so you gotta watch out for the little guy. Number 4, Jack Garland, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Jack Garland from Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a beautifully one-dimensional character who's so bent on destroying the main villain of the game, Chaos, that he inevitably ends up doing more evil than him. Because as it turns out, in the end, there is no Chaos. All of Jack's actions have actually led him to become him. Like all Final Fantasy games, Stranger of Paradise has a complicated plotline. to put it lightly. But the gist of it is this. Jack is an amnesiac hero from a different world who's willing to do anything to save his new home from darkness. In his pursuit of peace, Jack is completely unapologetic, doing things like punching villains mid-monologue because he's so done with their nonsense. This is why when he finds out that the main bad guys keep resetting the world to endlessly prolong the conflict between light and darkness, Jack comes up with a plan to become an even greater villain to stop them. Everything you do in the game is part of Jack's scheme to manipulate his next amnesiac iteration to kill his own friends and absorb enough darkness to become chaos, a villain capable of ending the cycle. The plan is honestly so messed up that even the actual villains panic when Jack succeeds and does indeed become the evil he convinced himself existed. Damn. Number 3. Ellie, The Last of Us Part 2. Nobody liked seeing what happened to Joel in The Last of Us Part 2, but it is kind of clear that no matter where you stand on the Abby Joel Ellie thing, Ellie does seem to come out as the bigger monster in the sequel. Although it's a super tough pill to swallow, Ellie isn't really the hero of her own story, but rather the villain. You might sympathize with her and play as her for the better half of the game, but her quest for revenge after Abby kills Joel sends her down a very dark path that makes her a much bigger menace than her target. Over the course of the game, she kills hundreds of people and destroys almost every community on her way just to get closer to Abby. The game makes this point very clear by making it so that most execution animations that you perform as Ellie have the enemies cowering and begging for mercy. A lot of the times, the people she attacks are completely unrelated to her beef with Abby, and some of them are just regular survivors who haven't done anything to her. It's a hurtful image for fans of the original game, but then again, it does fit into the sequel's theme of revenge being a path to self-destruction. Number 2. Doom Guy, Doom: The Dark Ages. If games were musical genres, the Doom franchise would definitely fit into the classic metal aesthetic. It's got freakish demons, massive hellscapes of terror and gore, and one really angry, muscly dude who somehow makes all the demons look like amateurs with his unhinged acts of violence against their kind. Doom Guy, the protagonist of the Doom series, is one of the most aggressive and terrifying video game heroes. Although his victims are exclusively demons, the way he dispatches each of them is so brutal that even humans are more afraid of him than their de facto invaders, and you can really tell this in the Dark Ages. This newest addition to the franchise makes the point so clear by showing how demons and humans alike are mortified by the Slayer, to the point where the demonic overlord Prince Azarak deliberately sends his forces away from him just so they aren't immediately sliced and diced to a pulp. Okay, the demons might be evil incarnate, but as far as acts of extreme violence and cruelty go, Doom Guy definitely outdoes any monstrosity the hells can cook up. Number 1. Kratos, God of War. These days, Kratos from God of War is mostly known as the remorseful father of the boy. You heard it in his voice, didn't you? We kind of known Kratos as the guy who shunned his past violent life in favor of a more peaceful one. However, don't let that distract you from the fact that Kratos from the original games is one of the most brutal, savage, and sadistic protagonists in gaming history. Although his crusade against the Greek gods is a result of Ares taking the lives of his family, his methods of enacting revenge make him just as awful, if not more so, than the gods he despises. His very obviously gruesome executions aside, Kratos' thirst for god blood is so strong that he also dooms hundreds, if not thousands, of mortals to similarly tragic ends. In the games, there are several instances where Kratos abuses, tortures, and just murders innocent mortal bystanders, most noticeably the boat captain, whom Kratos deliberately kills just to get a key. To make things even worse, the murder of Olympus at Kratos' hands eventually leaves all of Greece in ruin, as the gods' individual domains die out and flood the country with disasters. The gods may consider mortals their playthings, sure, but unlike Kratos, at least they allow them to live.